travel that we do as mid-majors and all that, like the month of November and the first like 2.5 weeks of December, like kick my ass. Just like every year. And
It's
like
just you
I
probably.
thought at the point at like the first couple years, like when I was at A State, when I started into like the whole basketball. Oh, I'm a basketball athletic trainer now, so it was fun. Like I love traveling because I did it at I did it at Ohio State. I did it when I was at Navy. But even those ones, they were football, and I chartered everywhere. So like you do you have your set schedule Sunday through Saturday. You know when you're leaving, and you're gone 48 hours tops. Um, so it's with us being, either on a bus when I was at Arkansas State, if it was less than 7 hours, we were on a bus. Now here at Towson, it's a lot easier. If it's more than 4.5, we're at BWI. We're taking a direct flight places. But like even then, when we had to go to Colorado and when we were over in out in Sioux Falls,
Oh yeah.
that was an extra 24 hours at least that we were on the road, that we weren't sleeping in our own bed, that we were getting flights like first thing in the morning. Like when we left Sioux Falls, like we played a 7 o'clock game. When we left Sioux Falls, we were up at 3:30 in the morning
What?
to catch a flight from Sioux Falls to Atlanta or Charlotte, and then back to BWI. So that's like an entire day
Oh.
that you just like have to recover from after playing a basketball game that evening.
Oh.
So it just adds to like us thinking, okay, well, what do we need to do for the injuries that happens, like for those games? Because you need to think you're on a flight, you're not getting the rest that you need, you're not like already you don't have the resources available to you of you know everything that we have here at Towson. Um, so it's just like added stress, more questions of okay, how are we going to treat the first like 24 hours of these injuries, and then how are we going to recover to prepare for the next game? So, uh, so yeah, man, the first like 2 months of non-conference kicked my ass like every year now, and I don't even care. I don't even care anymore. Like I'll tell everybody and their mother. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still gotta get the job done.
Yeah.
But going back to like how we got on this topic of our conference schedule, um, last year we'd almost always play on Thursday and Saturday, and both of those games would be away. So you have travel partners like William and Mary, and I think Elon
Yep.
was a travel partner.
Yep.
Um, Stony, or I think like Hofstra and Northeastern was a travel partner or something like that. But they're all like kind of close. So even if you fly somewhere, usually the next spot is less than a 3-hour bus ride. And Amit and I, we had like our in between days, our Fridays down pretty good, where we had probably about a 2.5 hour block where we'd schedule any of our high minute guys that played like 18 or plus minutes. They're on a treatment table, even if they felt good. They're on a treatment table, getting some kind of like passive or active recovery stuff done. And any nutrition stuff that we were able to do, whether it's just like cherry bundies or additional like supplementation, whether it's like turmeric and emergency, just for all of our travel purposes since we're on the road, everything like that. Like because at the end of the day, we're playing basketball in the middle of flu and cold season too. So
Right.
those like general medical conditions can come up, and it's like, okay, well, instead of just like treating you with your over the counter and at sometimes like prescription meds when you get sick, Like, what are we doing to make sure you don't get sick? Um, but now we either travel, we're either traveling on Thursday, like for a Thursday game, and then we're home on Saturday, or vice versa. So actually, it's honestly like been, I, I, I think sleeping in your own bed
Yeah.
and getting that amount of sleep, like, is great. We were fortunate enough to fly back from Charleston last Thursday, and then we played Campbell here at home Saturday. With the weather, we chartered back on Thursday night, and everybody was in their bed and asleep before 1:30 in the morning. And then we had a regular Friday, like we were home, instead of waking up at 9 o'clock, going through our walkthrough, being in an airport for 2 hours, being on a flight for another hour and 15 minutes, getting back to Towson, and then going through our regular Friday pregame. It was, and then we beat Campbell by 40. so, so just that one. Like, I know it's just one instance, but I mean, like, everybody felt great the next day, and it was a big difference. So yeah, man, I actually like that we're doing this. We're not on the road for 5 days at a time,
Yes.
every other week. It's been good. It's been really good.
That sounds like it's really good, not only for you and the staff, but like you said, for the players, because let's call it what it is. They still have to handle academic stuff. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's sleeping in your own bed. And that's awesome to hear.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been a lot better. A lot better.
So for anybody that's listening right now, Matt and I worked together at Towson for 3 years plus, and you
Hmm.
talked about working for football. Anybody that's listening now, why did you choose the basketball route or versus football? What are the common differences? I mean, you're working in two very high profile sports. Why that path?
Hmm. So I still loved and I enjoyed football when I was doing my internships. The first, I kind of was in a tricky spot. Um, I had just finished, so I just in retrospect, I had two football rotations when I was in undergrad. I took opportunities in the summer when I was in undergrad, uh, going down and doing an 8 weeks internship in Baton Rouge at LSU,
All
and
right.
then two training camps up in Minnesota with the Minnesota
Jeez.
Vikings, and then was a full-time intern with my primary sport being football at the Naval Academy, and a full-time intern with my primary sport being football at Ohio State. So before I got to Arkansas State, I mean, I had a little bit of basketball experience, but I mean, I by no, like, I didn't I didn't really know the sport like I do now, like other people do, like in the profession. Um, so can you please tell me your question again, so I can
Why,
stay on track?
why the path that you chose in terms of basketball
So
or
why am I
football or
still a
rugby?
basketball
Yeah.
athletic
Yeah.
trainer? Okay, so it's it's kind of a catch-22. Um, Number one, I'm only dealing with 14 to 17 student athletes compared to 110. Um,
That's a good point.
and number two, I am the men's basketball athletic trainer. Like, I obviously like dip in, get perspective, and ask questions about if I'm doing the right thing. But at the end of the day, like, I'm making all the decisions on how people are progressing, what we need to do, um, you know, all of the like rehab and like return to play stuff. Like, I'm the facilitator of that. I can give instruction to a mint, be like, hey, this is where so and so's at today. Uh, we can progress into this. What do you think about this? This is, how, and like I'm making those decisions. Like it's not a group decision, um, like it usually is with those like larger sports of football. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed like that responsibility. Um, I enjoyed that autonomy, and and now like I was talking at the beginning that like the travel kicks my ass, but I'm still going.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about our membership site. If you find value from our podcast, you are guaranteed to find more value inside of the Strength Coach Network video library inside the membership. Doesn't matter the level coach you are, you can see all of our 170 plus lectures sorted 3 different ways. Based on the level of expertise coach you are, aspiring, established, or head, you can sort it by every sport imaginable, and you can sort it by every topic in strength and conditioning. This makes all of the content consumable, easy for you and for your staff members to be able to deep dive on any topic in strength and conditioning. Click the link down below to try the site out for 24 hours for only $1. Then your membership turns into a monthly membership where the price is less than $30 a month for $29.99, which is less than going out to dinner by yourself. You have access to all of this content. Click the link down below.
To Arizona, to Cali, to Texas, to Florida, to Georgia. I spent 8 days in Charleston, South Carolina in November.
Really?
So yeah, we were at the Charleston Classic for our MTE, our non-conference, like in-season tournament deal. So all that stuff is incredible. Like I still enjoy doing all that stuff. We were in Colorado. We like me and Amit, we hiked up the Flatirons first thing in the morning before the sun came up,
Dude.
and then hiked back down and able to do that. Like I remember I did that like 5 years ago, and I had to spend like $700 because for the flight and for the hotel and the rental car. I did it for free. I paid $16 in an Uber and split it 50-50 with Amit. So those opportunities, man, are just great. Are great. So yeah.
Within the high performance world, because as we're on the show and we talked before off air, like we're minding the gap right now. We're helping strength coaches. Majority of our listeners are strength coaches. We have ATs, PTs, and other coaches inside of the network at Strength Coach Network. But right now we're trying to serve strength coaches and understand how to best work with their athletic trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Based off of all the athletic trainers or all the strength coaches you've worked with and seen, because anybody that needed to be reminded of everywhere he's been, rewind this by 3 minutes. You've seen a lot. What are some of the best characteristics you've seen from strength coaches over your career? And then how would you boil that down into advice for our listeners?
All right. So I think just with every other person that I've listened to on your podcast, collaboration obviously is the biggest thing. Collaboration and communication. You don't have to know it all, but you have to leave your ego at the door and be willing to ask the questions when you don't. And that's a big thing that I've been super blessed with, especially after I've gained the responsibility of being responsible on the athletic training side for one specific sport. Because even at 24 years old, going into my first full-time job at Arkansas State, there were still a lot of things that I did not have the answers to. And me and my strength coach, James Diaz, shout out James Diaz over at UNC Greensboro, kicking ass right now. We had to find the answers ourselves because just the overall like dynamic, structurally, administratively in that like athletics, sports performance, athletic training realm was not even close to where it is here at Towson. So collaboration, communication, obviously like huge. We talk about this, high performance model that just about everybody and their mothers kind of picking up and getting on the bandwagon now. But I think it's great because, I mean, that's kind of where I think I was introduced to it a little bit at LSU, but I was really like, I took a deep dive, and was like thrown into the fire and into the deep end when I was at Ohio State. I mean, Mickey Marotti kind of was the strength coach there, kind of was the guy that relayed all the information to Coach Meyer, which some people are like, hey, like the athletic trainer should be doing that, or whatever. I don't care as long as the right information is getting portrayed to like is getting to the guy in charge of the team. And so just seeing that, and there were enough resources where you had a liaison uh, that was for each group, each position group, and that liaison reported to their to that specific position coach, and then everything just kind of like kept going up the chain. And I believe me, like there's a reason why they're a top 5 team in the country every year. It's because they're doing shit right. And so being involved with that and just seeing how, I definitely like, was bought in, but kind of, it's hard to transition that from Ohio State to Arkansas State, which is Towson.
Yeah.
Like just with the resources, like, I can't just like take my P
Ohio State
card.
has their own brand of shoes.
Dude, I can't take my P card and spend $15,000 on like whatever I want, or spend like $55,000 on whatever I want. It doesn't work like that. So there's kind of maneuvering around that. It's been a little bit difficult, and it comes it's still we
Meek
still do
Mill
as good
said
a
there's
job.
levels to this, right?
Yes, absolutely,
like,
absolutely. Um, so yeah, going back to your original question, that collaboration and communication piece, it's huge. Um, and you need to leave your ego at the door. You need to answer. You need to ask those questions of someone with just even like a small return to play deal. We had someone get hurt yesterday with a minor ankle sprain, continued to play, but there might be some minor changes where we need to work on some more unilateral stuff instead of if it was just like a bilateral, like a squat day. Like we may need to change that up into some unilateral stuff so we can modify that weight, but still get the gains that we need to for that specific training session. So that was a lot of back and forth that thankfully I have never had an issue with any of the strength coaches that I've worked with, since I've been like a full-time athletic trainer and been involved. James and Amit have been amazing, and they're a huge reason why I stayed at Arkansas State for the amount of time that I did compared to others, and a huge reason why I'm still here at Towson.
how about within the other members of the high performance team, like, from the perspective of an athletic trainer, and I said a lot of our listeners are strength coaches,
Mm-hmm.
how do you see the best way to then even collaborate with the other people in it, whether it's the sport coach or the nutritionist
Mm-hmm.
or the sports psych? Because I know personally that you've done a lot with sports psych, and I'm not asking you to talk about obviously any of your patients or the athletes and their specific
Right.
struggles, but I know that you guys have done some pretty good mental resiliency stuff that's not the dogmatic stuff that everybody's seeing right now on social media. So for anybody listening,
Mm-hmm.
it is Friday, January 26th in 2024. It's the time where football off season start and people are spending money for the military to come in. And that's not mental performance training. What I've seen y'all do is pretty good. So can you elaborate on it for everybody?
Yeah. So we do what's called resilience training. It's 6 sessions blocked out once, six evenings throughout a semester, throughout 15 weeks. and it's for your new freshman students and any transfers. So at least with men's basketball this year, we've had a relatively high compliance rate. Now, those once we got into November and December, there were a few conflicts, but really what we do is we have a faculty member who's in that area, and he goes over and really kind of teaches you about about exactly that, your resilience training, your adapting to your overload. It's just like strength training. You work on your overload principle and adaptations, everything like that, except it's on a mental performance and psychological level. So that's the big basis. That's our big like resilience training program that we kind of really stress to the recruits that come in and our incoming student athletes. And then on top of that, we just hired a full-time athletics counselor, and we have a mental performance coach that we hire out that works more in a team dynamic and staff dynamic with coaching staffs as well. So there's always room for improvement, but I think at least with areas that I've been involved in and things that I've seen. I mean, back in 2014 when I was at the Naval Academy, we didn't have any kind of stuff like that. Now, I wasn't involved with the Naval Academy students, and I don't know if there's anything that any mental performance or mental health stuff that's mandatory, because they all have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But just in my observation, everything was orthopedic and musculoskeletal. And then these last 5 years, I mean, I think Towson has done as good of a job as it could with the resources that we have. I remember back in like 2017 or 18 when this whole mental health and mental performance stuff was kind of catching waves. Specifically, UNC Chapel Hill was kind of on the forefront of that, developing specific policies and procedures for more like mental health emergencies, but also working on that, sports for mental performance and overall mental health side of things too. So yeah, it's definitely different.
Quick break from the show to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button so that way you get notifications of when more content like this gets released. So click that like and subscribe button, and with that, let's get back to the show.
It's definitely different from your other deals. I don't really care for mat drills. People can have their own opinion on that. I think it just causes more injuries for us athletic trainers to take care of.
So I'm glad you brought up injuries, because that's one thing that I wanted to talk about within the AT and strength coach world is, and this is something that I've publicly said when I was working there with Kyle, is when the football team or when any team is healthy, and if the athletic trainer is training somebody that's regressed because they're injured and they're doing just a regression of it, aren't they technically a strength coach? And then let's say in practice, if the athletic trainer is occupied and can't be doing rehab with people, and the strength coach is doing whatever rehab work and they've coordinated with the AT, are they technically being an AT? Like, the lines get really blurry, but I think that those are the times that you have the best performance staff, because there's, like you said, there's no ego.
Yes. So I guess for litigation purposes, the answer is no.
Correct. Yeah. If you're gonna talk litigation, yeah.
But Absolutely. Like that's why you have your performance meetings. That's why you have your limitation reports that come out every morning. Um,
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about our newest sponsor, Hawkin Dynamics. Hawkin Dynamics builds and designs software and hardware for coaches, athletic trainers, sports scientists, and everybody in the high performance department. Most notably, their use of their force plates with the ease of transportation and ease of use. Not only did I use them when I was at Towson, but I've used them when I've moved back here to Iowa with Tucker at Goldfinch. So check out Hawkin Dynamics in the link down below. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah, like you said,
Thankfully,
litigiously, there's going to be differences, but in terms of
yes,
it, no.
yes. Thankfully, I was smart enough after I double majored in exercise science as well.
Really?
And yeah, yeah. And so when I graduated, I was eligible to take the CSCS. And I'm like, I don't need to take this. Like, this is this is dumb. Why do I need to take another test? And then 4 years into the profession, I'm like, wow, I really should have taken this CSCS exam. So study my ass off for about 7 months and passed it my second time. I passed one of the two parts the first time, and I had to retake the second part the second time, and I passed it by like 2. And I'm like, doesn't matter. I passed it. Put those extra 4 letters at the end of my name, baby. Um, but but no, yeah, absolutely. That's why like my previous question or my previous answer to the question, the collaboration and communication, just the example that I talked about of, a subacute injury of the lateral ankle sprain, maybe like doing more unilateral movements instead of, throwing 300 pounds on their back and expecting them to be able to squat, 3 sets of 5, is is the exact reason why you need to have those meetings and that communication back and forth. And it's all to dumb it down, like it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. Like we go over our like the first thing that I do. So when I have an athletic training student, the first thing that I do is I print out the the 3 phases of your injury of your post-injury, your inflammation phase, your proliferation phase, your maturation phase. All that stuff, like you strength coaches know, with the exception of two, at least to like a elementary level to where you can understand stuff if it's explained to you. Now there's like your different proteins and histamine levels and this and that like go back and forth that you don't really need to know. But at the end of the day, like your 7 rehab goals are to decrease swelling, decrease pain, increase range of motion, and then just back up. And then everything after that is strength and conditioning related. Balanced proprioception, increased muscular strength, increased muscular endurance, everything. Like all of that you guys read in your textbooks and are in class, and you actually like practice and develop those things in your rehab or in your like strength and conditioning programs already. So things might need to get like more specific, but even now, like we have a guy who is 5 months post ACL, kicking ass. Like he can do everything, but at the same time, like I still go over to a mitt and like on his like super high plyo days, I make sure that his ground contacts are not 250 on his high explosive like plyo days, because I need that like back and forth. Because yeah, I got my CSCS, but I work. I'm doing my rehab and everything every day, so I can dip into.
What's up, strength coaches? Want to take a quick break from the show to talk to you about our sponsor, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is your one-stop shop for online training platform needs as a coach. With TeamBuildr, you're going to be able to program for your athletes whether they're in person or remote. Using TeamBuildr, not only will you be able to program for your athletes, but there are special features such as the leaderboard and locking training with wellness questionnaires. With the leaderboard, you can have an exercise performed that day, whether it be a lift, a sprint, or a jump, and scores can be updated in real time and projected on a TV in the training. Wellness questionnaires can be used at the beginning of training, and your athletes will have to fill them out prior to being able to train. This ensures that as a coach, you're being able to collect quality data before the athletes train. So, if you're interested in TeamBuildr, click the link down below and find out more information. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a more advanced end of return to play progression for you guys. So there naturally there is an in between when you think about your whatever your circles. There's going to be an in between that both people are qualified and able to do. It's just a matter of how efficient and what is more optimal. Okay, and is it easier for me to send a mid upstairs and go through the plyometric progressions that we have for our post ACL guy during practice, or do I need to bring 18 pieces of equipment downstairs to the arena and have him do that and then go upstairs with it? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just more work for me and for him. And then there's only one set of eyes that's looking at his jump progressions instead of two.
What do you think? Do you think why there's a lot of positions in the NBA where there's AT and a strength coach? At least it was back in the day.
Meaning, like
it was a dual role almost. Yeah.
You need those certifications, or like it's a athletic trainer and strength coach.
You needed both because you were like the AT and you were in charge of the weight room. Because one of my buddies, Mike Runcardi, he went to school at Northeastern, and then he was on staff with the Grizzlies, but he was also on staff with the Golden State Warriors, and like it was a dual role type thing.
Right. I'm not sure if they have that now, because I'm not really, I don't really know too many people in the NBA. I know at least a few years ago they were doing, like, that was really popular in the T League, because there's, you're still NBA, right? You're still affiliated with the NBA team, but you're not, you don't have that amount of staff there. So I can't really get too much into that. I know, especially at like lower Division 2 levels, Division 3 levels, yes, they look for a CSCS or some kind of strength and conditioning certification when you apply for athletic training jobs. But I can't really dive deep into all that NBA stuff.
One question I have for you about sleep is, how do you handle sleep on the road? I know you guys don't travel as much as you do, but you did say that you were away for 7 days. How do you handle that stuff? What are some advice that you give to the athletes, and then advice that our coaches should be considering?
I think number one is trying to get as consistent of a schedule as possible. We're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, so there's going to be one hotel room that's got the PS5 that they're playing 2K until 2:00 in the morning. So but especially so, I guess the biggest things that Amit and I were able to kind of try and handle and maneuver and regulate was them being able to go to sleep after night games, because you come home, you play a 7:00 game, you're done at 9, you have all this you're wired, you're going at 300 miles an hour. And so how can we down regulate you to be able to go to sleep in general? So the first year that we did it, we we figured out that we were doing it without knowing that we were doing it. And then in the second year and this year, we have been able to kind of like, we realized that we were able to do it, we were doing it, and we were just more like aware. Number one is just kind of like natural supplementation, whether it's melatonin or through like supplemental melatonin or through natural remedies of cherry bundies, stuff like that. So that's as basic as we can get because we don't have 24/7 wearables that we can kind of see how they do, like what their normal sleep schedules are like anyways. And then a lot of it is just trying to move things back as much as possible for the next day. So whether it's our departure time from the hotel from one destination to the other the next day, or okay, hey, like let's suck it up, go from where go from Elon to William and Mary as soon as the game's over. Get in bed at it's only like a 2.5 hour drive or something like that, anyways.
Yeah,
So we're
that's
still
smart.
getting into the hotel at 11, even though it's late. You have time to like you're sitting on a bus for a few hours, so you still got time to like down regulate, get back to that homeostatic point to be able to go to sleep when you get there, instead of being wired until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and everything like that. Other than that, there's only so much that we can do, that we can control as athletic trainers, strength coaches, performance specialists to instruct them of what they need to do before it's really in their hands.
No, but at least you guys are having that conversation, and that's really smart. Any of our listeners out there, if you're working in basketball, I would consider doing that. And I remember hearing something from, I want to say it was LeBron, that when they would fly, like they'd play a late night game, if they had to travel, instead of like doing it right after the game, they're like, let's just stay here, stay in the town, go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
wake up the next day. And I can't be overestimated, everybody listening, how important sleep is to what these guys are trying to do. And you talked
Oh
about
yeah,
that when you talked on the show.
I used to like back when I was at Arkansas State, the first like 2 or 3 years, like, oh, it's a day off, it's a Sunday afternoon, we don't have anything going on, let's do rehab treatments from like 1 to 3. If you need anything, like I'm gonna be here. And I even did that for the first year that I was here at Towson, where it's like, oh, you're on the injury report. Let me see you from like 11 to 3. Man, the best modality that you can give your student athletes is sleep. Like, I don't need to be here after a game for an hour and a half doing treatment on somebody, because I know that if they get 9 hours of sleep that same night, it's going to do more than the hour and a half of treatment that I did. So, yes, like I learned the hard way of doing a lot more hours than I needed to get the benefits and that I wanted for my student athletes the first couple of years that I was here, just because I was such a go-getter. I'm like, we need to do this, we need to do this. I need to like get my hands on guys, so they feel better. Like sometimes you just need to like put your feet up. And that's
Literally.
That's the best rest that you can. That's the best modality that you can give your student athletes sometimes.
What would you tell a young athletic trainer that wants to get into the game right now?
Man, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think you need to know what your career, like your professional priorities are at first. Um, because there's so many people that are my age now. I always tell people that I'm kind of like in that I'm in purgatory between like
It's
being
very good.
between like a more advanced entry level position,
Uh-huh.
but still like don't have that resume to get my resume to the top of those like really good jobs, those like high paying um, head level jobs. Um, and it takes a lot of work, man. It takes a lot of work to like grind to get to those positions. And there's a lot of people who like as they get older, um, have wife, kids, like their priorities change. Um, and you know, Division 1 basketball is an animal for
Yeah.
sure. Um, so if I were to give advice, number one, work your ass off because even when the first couple of years that I was at Arkansas State, I know I didn't know as much as I needed to, but I worked my tail off to make sure if I made a mistake, the work that I did would make up for my mistake.
Mm.
Um, and number two, it's like know what you want to do because you don't want to be at a shitty job for 4 years making next to nothing and get to a better job and still not want to do what you're doing every day. Um, there's a lot of different opportunities in the athletic training field um, that pay better and you don't have to work as long. But, I know I want to stay in Division 1 athletics because I have the opportunity to, be a daily role model for people who are like growing up into young adults and be able to leave a footprint on their lives. So yeah, I think those are the biggest things. Obviously, you need to continue to ask questions and learn every day from the resources that you have around you, with whether that's the people or the academic side of things, um, because that's just going to help you too.
Speaking of learning, what's been the most recent eye-opening thing that you've learned in the last year, 2, 3, whatever, that has kind of changed the way you look at or approach training and rehab?
Mm. Over the last, I'm gonna switch the question around into
Okay.
like over the last however over the last 3 or 4
Sure.
years.
Yeah.
It's like the more you look into different the new fads and everything like that, like the simple stuff works. The simple stuff works. Um, Look at your movement quality, correct those dysfunctions in that movement quality, and just make sure that your rehab is goal oriented.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
sometimes sometimes I would be all over the place with my rehab, and I wouldn't have like specific goals. I'd just be like, oh, this is a really good exercise for ankle range of motion. We're gonna do this, but they already have good range of motion, and I don't need to address that. Or, you know, sometimes, you know, I'd find myself doing, 45 minutes of modalities when 30 minutes of those modalities didn't have indications at that time to the rehab and the like phase of their injury process and healing process that they were in. So it became a lot. If you have specific goals for every rehab session that you're doing, and those goals are consistent and progressive, then your rehabs are going to get a lot better, and you're not going to have to do it as long as you need to do it. You're going to see your rehabs go from an hour and 10 minutes to 40 minutes, to 35 minutes, because you have specific goals for those rehabs, and those goals you can see are progressive and linear, moving towards that ultimate goal of returning to play and being pain-free.
No, I 100% agree. That's why I was kind of sitting back, just kind of thinking to what you're saying is, and I think everybody does that. Strength coach, athletic trainer, you get new shiny object syndrome. Like, oh, this is the greatest exercise ever. How can I make it fit and work? When in reality, like, how can you take a step back and kind of see the forest and the trees and how they all flow together?
Right. Things can be as complex or as simple as you want them to be.
That's the biggest part, is it's as complicated as you want it to be, because you are the practitioner, and you're, like you said, you're driving the engine forward for these, student athletes, these young kids that we're trying to impress on.
Yeah. Just one example of that is when I got to Arkansas State, I was doing a bunch of like range of motion tests for the shoulder. But like, why do I need to do range of motion and strength tests for the shoulder if basketball is a lower extremity dominant sport?
That's a good point.
And why do I need to do that? Like, I'm not going to waste an extra 10 minutes on every student athlete that's coming in the door to test range of motion and strength in the shoulder if 98% of the injuries that happen in basketball happen from your hip and pelvis down.
Yeah, and if it's an upper body injury, it's probably a contact thing where somebody bumped into them and they fell, and it's a trauma-based injury that you have to acutely deal with.
Right. Huh. Exactly.
That's really smart. We want to respect your time because we know that you are, like you said, you had a game yesterday, you got a game tomorrow, you got a lot going on. What would be something, last piece of advice that you would give to any of our listeners out there in terms of athletics, working with athletes, whatever kind of send-off message that you would want to give to anybody?
I think it's probably close or similar to, the advice or the question that you asked me about advice for young professionals, entering the field, being in their first couple of years, or even as, graduate or undergraduate students still trying to get their certification, is, really step back and figure out why you, like, deep down, why you want to be an athletic trainer or a strength coach. Because that answer should not change with the title that you have, with the personal development that you have, and additional family that you get after you get married, have kids, everything like that. It shouldn't change. I know that God put me on this planet to serve and be a role model for young adults. And I love learning about overall physiology of the human body and anatomy of the human body. And sports are dope. So the goal and the reason why I am like a Division I athletic trainer, spending more nights in a hotel room than in my own bed from November to the end of to Christmas, is because I know that personally, I know that the career choice that I made can fulfill the reason that I'm here. And so it really helps. It really makes a difference when, you know, you get invitations to weddings from student athletes that you've had 4 years ago, and that's still in your life, and you know that you've made a difference. So I think that really, you know, it's just my personal example. You can have different answers to that question. You may just like want to personally fulfill the goal of being a high major Division I athletic trainer in charge of a entire sports performance staff. And if that is what's going to fulfill you, then once you get to that position, you should be fulfilled, and you should be happy. So yeah.
That's a mic drop moment, folks. I truly do believe I believe God put me on this earth to work with athletes as the strength coach version of it. But that's my purpose. That's why I'm here, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. So, Matt, we appreciate you coming on the show. Congrats on the win yesterday, and good luck tomorrow. Go get that dub.
We're going to keep it rolling, man. We're going to keep it rolling.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.